Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. Let's dig in. Here's what's been going on in Russia in the last 24 hours. The biggest storyline today is the G7 summit dynamics in France, and the way Ukraine's war has basically fused itself into every high-level conversation happening there. Leaders are trying to hold a unified position on Ukraine while also managing a very specific problem set: keeping the United States fully engaged, especially with President Trump now playing a central role in parallel discussions with both Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Vladimir Putin. Zelenskyy used the summit space to push for something he's been repeating in different forms for weeks: a direct leader-level meeting with Putin. This time, the framing is more explicit. He floated the idea of a meeting under G7 conditions, or even in the US, arguing that the presence of Trump and European leaders could create enough political weight to force a real negotiation moment. Trump, after meeting Zelenskyy, described the conversation as constructive, and again said Russia needs to make a deal. He also confirmed he recently spoke with Putin. That matters less for the content of the call and more for the signal. Multiple channels are now active at once, and none of them are fully coordinated through a single diplomatic framework. On the Russian side, the message is unchanged. The Kremlin continues to insist there is no formal negotiation track in place and no accepted invitation structure for Putin to attend any leader-level meeting. The effect is a diplomatic triangle where everyone is talking about peace, but nobody agrees on what talking actually looks like in practice. Europe is trying to shape that space through pressure, not persuasion. The UK just expanded its sanctions package, targeting Russia's financial system, maritime logistics network, and covert procurement channels. The focus is increasingly structural, not just individual companies, but the pipelines that allow Russian energy exports and dual-use technology acquisition to continue operating under restriction. The Shadow Fleet remains central here. These are the vessels moving Russian oil and LNG outside traditional insurance and compliance systems. London is now targeting ships, insurers, and supporting entities tied to that network, alongside financial institutions linked to energy revenue flows. The goal is straightforward: reduce Russia's ability to convert exports into sustained war funding, even if physical shipments still move. And this is where the economic battlefield starts to connect directly back to the war itself. Russia's latest strike activity in Ukraine reinforces that escalation loop. Over the last cycle, Russian forces carried out another combined missile and drone campaign against Ukrainian cities, including Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Dnipro. The operational pattern is consistent: layered salvos, mixed missile types, decoys, and saturation tactics designed to stress air defenses and increase the probability of penetration. But the more important shift is what these strikes are now targeting. Beyond military infrastructure, there is sustained pressure on residential areas and cultural sites, with Ukraine reporting damage to historically significant locations. Russia has continued to deny intentional targeting of cultural heritage and instead attributes some of the damage to Ukrainian air defense activity. That narrative contest is now running in parallel with the physical strikes themselves. At the same time, Ukraine is pushing a different kind of pressure campaign in return. Long-range drone strikes have repeatedly hit Russian energy infrastructure, including major refinery capacity near Moscow. One of the largest recent incidents involved a strike on a refinery facility capable of processing a significant share of regional fuel demand. Ukrainian leadership has described these operations as a form of economic counterpressure, essentially treating fuel infrastructure as a legitimate extension of the battlefield. And the impact is starting to show up inside Russia's domestic system. Fuel caps, supply restrictions, and refinery adjustments are being introduced in multiple regions. In some cases, authorities are even allowing lower fuel quality standards temporarily to stabilize supply. This is not symbolic disruption anymore. It is creeping into domestic logistics and civilian consumption patterns. That creates a feedback loop where battlefield operations directly affect internal economic stability. Now, layered on top of all of this is the intelligence and hybrid warfare environment spreading across Europe. In the UK, courts have convicted individuals tied to arson attacks on property linked to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The recruitment came through Russian-language telegram channels, with a handler directing low-level operatives to carry out targeted fires intended to generate fear and visibility. Investigators have not publicly confirmed a state sponsor, but the operational model fits a broader pattern seen across Europe: anonymous tasking, disposable recruits, and politically symbolic targets. In Finland, prosecutors are moving forward with a case involving suspected sabotage of undersea communication cables. The allegation is that a cargo vessel intentionally dragged a damaged anchor across the seabed over long distances, damaging critical infrastructure links between Finland and Estonia. That kind of incident sits in a growing category of gray zone activity, targeting Europe's digital and energy connectivity. In Poland, the killing of a Russian dissident artist near the Belarus border has triggered an active investigation involving detained Belarusian nationals. The case remains unresolved publicly, but it adds another layer to a pattern of politically sensitive violence involving Russian opposition figures outside Russia's borders. Inside Ukraine, counterintelligence operations continue to expose embedded networks supporting Russian targeting. Individuals have been detained for gathering coordinates on Ukrainian military positions and monitoring air defense behavior during strikes. These are not high-end espionage operations. They are low-cost, locally recruited intelligence nodes feeding targeting data back into Russian strike planning cycles. That matters because it shows how modern strike warfare is built. Not just missiles and drones, but people, phones, cameras, and messaging apps feeding real-time intelligence into strike systems. Zooming out to Russia's near abroad, pressure is also visible in political messaging and alignment debates. Armenia continues to sit at the center of competing narratives between Western integration and Russian influence structures. Russian intelligence leadership has warned publicly against over-reliance on Western support, framing it as economically destabilizing. Meanwhile, Armenia's political trajectory continues to move toward deeper engagement with European frameworks, which is increasingly being interpreted in Moscow as a strategic loss of influence rather than just a diplomatic disagreement. Belarus, meanwhile, is playing a different role. Its leadership has publicly suggested that neither Russia nor Ukraine can achieve battlefield victory, and that compromise is unavoidable. That language is notable less for its content and more for its positioning. It signals an attempt to stay relevant in any future negotiation architecture without breaking alignment with Moscow. Thanks for listening. If this was useful, a quick review or comment helps others find the show. For deeper coverage, check out our daily intel brief on Substack at restrictedhandling.substack.com. Have a great day.
The grill is shot. The chairs are held together by optimism. And what happened to the rug? Sounds like your outdoor setup is not ready for patio season. Fix it all with Wayfair. Shop Wayfair for grills, rugs, furniture, and more. With 20 million 5-star reviews, room of choice delivery, and expert setup on qualifying orders, it's never been easier to do more for less. Get 10% off your first eligible purchase. Hurry to wayfair.com or download the app now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.